Welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the place where you can learn how to create a dental practice and a business life that you love. Listen in with Dr. David Moffet as he interviews successful entrepreneurs and successful business people and successful dentists as they share their business successes, their stories, and their breakthrough ideas. Sharing pearls of wisdom that you can take back to your practice and implement immediately so that you can have that great practice with more patients, higher profits, and less stress. This is the podcast where great dental practices meet with successful business processes. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast, the podcast where thought leaders, industry experts, and thriving practice owners reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies that will help you to grow your dental practice faster. Now, here's your host, Dr. David Moffet.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. David Moffet. I'm broadcasting from Burrawang in New South Wales in Australia, and it gives me great pleasure today to welcome Julie Parker to the studio. Julie is in Oakley in Melbourne, same time zone, same date, everything's the same, as opposed to some of my international people who are ahead or behind. Julie, welcome to the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Good to see you.
Great to see you too, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I love it. And we were just lamenting that when I first started my podcast, you and Jane were one of the first guests that I had. So thank you for inviting me along to yours.
No, very, very nice. And I was very slow in taking up the podcast banner, but lined up nearly a year's worth now, done in the pipeline or recorded. So getting very excited and used to it, and still people knocking on my door to be interviewed. But Julie, you and I, being Australians, we have similar paths, though you were a practice owner, but you were not a dentist to own a practice. I think you were the first non-dentist to own a practice in Australia. Is that correct?
That is correct, back in 2003.
My goodness. And so that makes you a trailblazer, but you are now a dental coach, consultant, and have been doing that quite successfully. So it's great to talk to you. Tell the audience about your journey through dentistry from where you began into practice ownership and now into coaching and consulting.
Sure thing. Yes, I was in the dental industry prior to owning my own practice. I was a dental nurse and receptionist and fulfilled all the other roles from the age of 17 because I was thrown out of school early because I wasn't turning up. And so I was an early school leaver. And at that time, I had three options in front of me. I could go to secretarial college, I could become a hairdresser, trainee hairdresser, or a trainee dental nurse. And so I like the thought of out of those three options, I like the thought of dental and went down that path. And I happened to go along to this one local dentist who I was just ringing around dentists. I didn't even know to look at the help wanted ads. I was just ringing dentists around. Are you looking for a trainee dental nurse? This guy said yes. I turned up. He'd already interviewed a number of candidates. And the first question he asked me was something like, what are 6 4s? And I knew the answer. And he said, you're hired. He said, I'm over it. None of these people can do math. So thank goodness my father really enjoyed maths and made sure that I knew it.
Wow. If only all job interviews were that quick and that easy.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But it was interesting. I mean, once I was in the dental industry, I loved it. And whereas previous to that, I wasn't interested in academia or learning. Once I got into dental, I couldn't wait to learn more and more and more. And so the next few years went by and I went to different roles within the dental practice. And then in 2000 and it would have been the early part of 2003, I was listening to a particular cassette tape series that a patient had said to me, I think you'll really enjoy listening to these. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was my first exposure to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I'd always wanted to do something more. And within this tape series, I developed this thought, I wonder if I could own my own dental practice. And did all the visualization and the planning and got up every morning pretending like I owned a dental practice. And 6 months later, I was in my own dental practice. And so it was all a very quick process. And thank God I didn't know what I should have known, but I didn't know all the things I was supposed to know, because as you know, these sort of big projects in life, when we take them on, especially business ownership, when you've got command over a group of team members and patients as well, and you're stepping into market demands and advertising and all the things, there's a lot that can go wrong, and there's a lot you need to learn. And when you embrace that learning journey, it's less painful, but there's always painful bumps in the road. Because I think if I knew what that journey was going to look like, I think I may have shied away from it, but thank goodness I didn't.
So you came into dental practice ownership with the same skills that a graduate dentist comes into dental practice ownership, which is no business skills at all. But you didn't even have the dentistry to back you up. Wow, what a journey that would have been.
Yeah, it was really so exciting and exhilarating. And just through the way life, I was originally going to go into business with a dentist who I'd been working with. That fell through. My husband at the time was really unenthusiastic about the whole thing. And these sort of things where you go, oh, that's hampering me. Upon reflection, it was a wonderful thing. It was kind of a gift, really, to say, I'm doing it all myself. It's all squarely on my shoulders, because it was all up to me, and I couldn't kind of pass the buck, and I couldn't resist some tasks. You just had to embrace the whole thing. And, because generally I've had a pretty happy life. I've had an extraordinary happy life. So you do take the happiness where you find it, and you recognize the bumps along the way are all part of the learning journey. And if you can embrace all that, you can have a whale of a time. As you know, your career's kind of gone all over the place as well.
True. So tell me, how long were you a practice owner, and what were the pluses that you saw in being a dental practice owner?
I owned it for 10 years, and the pluses were immense. I mean, one of the biggest things was it really taught me how to communicate well with team members. I felt like I'd already been doing it for many years with patients, of course, because I was a dental assistant and patient coordinator, receptionist, all those sort of roles. But when it came to people, we think that we are being effective in our communication just because words are tumbling out of our mouth. But it really taught me how to become a very effective communicator, how to really see things from their side, and what kind of questions and communications required to get them to share what their reality is. Only then can we really start to try to achieve a win-win situation. So I think my people management skills and communication skills were one of the biggest benefits that I experienced, but certainly that self-awareness journey as well. There is nothing like going through the pains that make you resilient, but then feeling that resilience afterwards. That's exhilarating. That is a feeling, I think the story that's kind of coming back into my mind, which was something I learned and read about quite a while ago, was, you know, that saying, and many people have said it, that we are very good at setting goals for ourselves for 1 year, but the goals are way too big and we never get to achieve those goals in 1 year. And we are also very good at casting ourselves 10 years forward and not setting big enough goals. And I've always thought to myself, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because if ever I go through one of these, self-improvement development seminars, and they always ask that question, where will you be in 5 years? Where will you be in 10 years? I'm like, I'm going to be bloody awesome. I'm going to be a squillionaire. I'm going to have many, many friends. I'm going to have this wonderful big mansion. And so my thought is the goal's always been very big for the 10-year goal. But I was researching that saying because I was intrigued by it. And one of these articles I came across, it was just tremendous. It talked about this online game called Osmos, and it does exist. I have researched this game. It does exist. And this game in Osmos, you are like a particle, an atom, moving around a medium, and you're bumping into and coming across all of these other atoms. And if you bump into an atom that's smaller than you, you gobble it up, you overcome it, and then you get that little bit bigger. But if you come across an atom that's larger than you and you bump into it, it will gobble you up, and that will be the end of your game. So the whole purpose is to, as you gobble up smaller atoms, you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so you come across the atom that used to be much bigger than you, but now you're so much bigger that it's a lot smaller than you, and you can overcome it and continue on with the game. And it feels like that's what life is about too. If you really embrace that learning journey, if you embrace all the obstacles, the things that do make us resilient, the things that do make us better and bolder and bigger, then that's where I think to myself, gosh, I understand now why we can't make those sort of plans for ourselves 10 years off into the distance, because who knows who we're going to be. Because if we make that journey worthwhile, we don't have any idea what our capabilities are in 10 years' time.
Interesting. So you've got no 10-year goals. My 10-year goal is to just still be alive in 10 years.
That's a good one.
Well, life's like that. I guess every time I hear of the death of someone younger than me, I think, I wonder what brought their downfall. And also, as I pass through different ages, and I say, well, I'm older than Greedy Smith was when he died. I'm older than my friend Lance, who died at the age of 60. And I always looked up to him. I was 40 when he died at the age of 60. So it's interesting. There comes a time in the future, or does for me, where I guess you have to face that you're towards the end of the journey. Funnily enough, I've been playing vinyl records finally that I've owned for many years and not owned a record.
I saw a picture that you posted on Facebook recently of one of the albums that you're playing.
I played Slade Alive, which was the first vinyl record that I was given. There's two. I don't know which one. There was a Beatles one, but Slade. But there's a line in a Slade Alive on Slade Alive in one of the songs that says, now a quarter of my life has almost passed. And I thought, when I heard that, I thought, wow, 3/4 of my life has gone. I'm at the other end of that spectrum. And so, I'm not to the stage where I'm not buying green bananas. But some people get that old, they say, I don't know if I'm going to be around to eat those bananas when they ripen. But anyway, I was going to ask you, early on in that, you being a practice owner but not being a dentist, one of the assumptions that 90% of patients make is that the dentist in the practice is the owner of the practice. So how did you deal with that? Did everybody know that, or did they only know that when there was an issue or a concern? How did you deal with that as a non-dentist owner?
Yeah, it was never anything that I actually announced. Michelle, who joined me as the principal dentist of the practice, she and I shared very similar patient management thoughts and philosophies and the kind of environment that we loved working in as well. So that was an enormous blessing. So I'm really thrilled I came across Michelle. She'd already had 11 years experience as a dentist, so she was well experienced. She didn't need any mentorship or anything like that. And then David Fennick, magnificent man, he was the one that sold me the practice. It had been going on for decades and decades. It had a very strong client base. And I thought that would be an issue, that I was a non-dentist owning the practice for the patients, and I thought it would be an issue hiring staff, hiring dentists as well. With the patients, there were some that would directly ask the question, is Michelle the owner? And I would say, no, Michelle's the principal dentist here and I'm the owner. And the response was always, oh, fantastic, great. And it was not an issue whatsoever. And when it came to hiring dentists, I was always very on the front foot saying, just to let you know, I'm not a dentist, but I do own the practice. And so as long as you're still happy to come in for an interview, come on in. And again, the dentists, well, sure, no worries, I'll come straight on in. And it wasn't an issue in either way. So I was really quite impressed. I remember at the very start, I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. So I rang the Victorian Dental Board and the Australian Dental Association, and I said, this is what I'm planning on doing. Do you have any problems with it? And both people said, no problems whatsoever. And I think it was Fred Widdop. I think he was the head of the ADA back in those days. And I said, I'm just so impressed with the support. He said, oh, it may not be support. It's just that we don't have any governance over you. We only have governance over dentists. And so we can't disagree with what you're doing.
Oh, wow.
So I think a few things are on my side.
So you weren't able to join the ADA because you weren't a dentist?
No. Correct. And so I was kind of unpoliced from that perspective, which is kind of crazy.
Only police.
But it did kind of help me identify one of the early values that I needed to put in place. I knew very clearly that if I did anything wrong in terms of my advertising, for example, or the kind of systems that we put in place, then I wasn't going to be the one that got in trouble. It was going to be my employee dentists. And so they were the ones in a vulnerable position. So I did make sure that all of the advertising and marketing strategies that we put out there were developed together, agreed upon by all, and that I was really making sure that I was stepping up to that responsibility and not putting the dentists that were, wonderfully creating all the production for the practice, that they weren't being put at any risk.
No, and so that should be for every dentist owner, to make sure that they're not jeopardising the careers of the employed dentists, because the employed dentist has to, it's the law anyway. If you knowingly observe a felony or something that is detrimental in the career of in the practice of dentistry, like of a dentist who's got a substance abuse problem, it is your role to present that person for assistance or police assistance if it's a criminal issue. Otherwise, you're an accessory to the fact, and so it's the same in theft. But I guess the fact that you weren't a dentist coming in was actually an advantage, because I tend to find that there's a lot of dentists who don't know much, but they think they know a lot because they think they were smart enough to get into dentistry in the first place, and they're smart enough to get through dentistry, so they're smart enough to work a lot of things out. And that's probably the downfall to why their practices aren't successful, is that they don't understand that it's impossible in any business to be an expert at everything, and that you do need to. Sorry, I'm laughing at a joke I heard about accountants. But you do need to get qualified people in to help you. Now, the joke was, let me tell you that joke. The joke was that this guy said, he said, I didn't know anything about accounting. He said, so I used to get an accountant to do my books, and every year I'd give money to the American, Office of State Revenue, or the tax department. He said, I got sick and tired of doing that. So he said, I cut out the middleman. I started doing my own books. Guess what I got? $12 billion refund.
But you think about it too from a business ownership perspective, me owning a practice compared to you, for example, and you start your business ownership, you go straight into the surgery, start seeing all the patients. That's what makes the production. And so you're trying to learn the additional skills that you require for business management in downtime, in spare time, on weekends. Meanwhile, I'm the one sitting on the front desk, the one that's got the most at stake to make sure those patients are happy and satisfied. I'm the one communicating with them. I'm the one on the phone to them. I'm the one managing all of their, bill queries, and, if they've lost a filling that's just been placed and all the things. And so number one, I'm, nurturing that market so beautifully. But what I'm doing is learning how to do business during my everyday full time. So you can imagine that there's quite a number of benefits to not having to go straight into the surgery and start doing your clinical work when you are owning the practice. But then again, as balanced out with the risk that if any of those dentists leave, then I can't step in and fill their shoes.
No, but you raise a really good point, and it's one that I often talk to dentists about, the fact that being in dentistry is like being a mechanic. You're under the car, you've got your head in the engine, you've got no idea what's going on when the phone rings, when customers come in. Whereas you, as the owner, you're the Captain Peacock of the department store. You're there. You're the schmoozer. You're the head waiter, greeting the customers, and so you've got a hands-on in the customer experience, which is really what's the most important. And dentistry is probably, sadly, a lot of dentists don't realise this, but dentistry is a customer experience that nobody wants, because it's a grudge buy as a customer. Nobody wants to go to the dentist. So if you win them over as a customer, then you've won them forever. But because dentists are so technically trained, they just think, if I do better margins. If I drop my margins from 20 microns to 15 microns, I'll get more patients. Doesn't work that way. You can open your margins up to 50 microns and 100 microns if you've got a great personality. But and that's one thing that a lot of dentists will say. You know, they say, I saw this patient and they had such bad dentistry, and I asked them, where did they go? Oh, I went to Dr. Jones. He's just retired after 30 years. I don't know if I'd ever find anyone to replace him. And you go, my goodness, he's worked so.
And Dr. Jones, clinically not great, made a living out of it. So you're absolutely right.
Yes.
The clinical skills aren't the thing that's going to make you or break you as a business owner.
No. So after you sold the practice, you said you were there for 10 years. Then you entered the world of coaching.
Got a divorce and so had to sell everything.
Oh.
And it came at a good time because I was, by 10 years down the track, I was so comfortable there. I knew every patient. I knew every team member. I knew how to do all the things. And so I was definitely in that firm comfort zone. And so when it came time to sell, it really wasn't a sad thing for me. I was like, oh, maybe this is good. This is a way of me getting better in life, progressing. And as Tony Robbins says, we are, as human beings, we are at our happiest when we are progressing. And so I think that's the framework that my mind was working within when the next chapter came on board. And of course, being what I thought was a very effective business owner, we increased productivity and we had a happy team and long-standing team and all the things, kept all the patients and grew. I thought then I'll become a consultant because I know everything about dental practice ownership now. So I became a consultant and realised that that is a different type of entrepreneurial journey. And this is one that you're a professional speaker and you've written, authored books and all the things and consulting as well. But it's a different kettle of fish. And so you come right back to square one again and you go, how do I learn how to market myself and how to do this and how to position myself and make sure I'm having the proper conversations with people, let alone just structuring the information that you're going to be sharing with clients. And so it has been, you kind of come out of one loop where you develop confidence and competency and then you break out and you go into another one and then you go, as I say, you go back to the start and you start learning again. It takes a long time.
I remember, I think it was Linda Miles who said that in America, if they doubled the number of consultants and coaches in dentistry overnight, there still wouldn't be enough coaches and consultants for all the work that is needed to be done by coaches and consultants in dentistry, because so many practices just aren't they're not covering all the bases. How are you finding the dental practice industry at the moment? Because I know you're out there more than me in terms of growing a business. And also being known, the other thing, which a doctor once said to me, he said, David, your practice ages with you. So as you get older, you're considered, there's a point where you'll just be considered, you're too old to be good enough to be my doctor anymore. And you're too old as a coach or consultant to know what I need to know as a young person. And so how are you finding the market out there with dental graduates? One, they're going for a lot of corporate jobs, I think, because it's a way of learning things, but sometimes they're part-time corporate, part-time owning somewhere else. How's the market out there for young dentists in terms of education and getting the business smarts that they need?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you're too young, you don't have the authority or credibility, and then all of a sudden you get too old to treat them. So you've got this happy 20-year period in the middle. But I think I was speaking to somebody recently within dental recruitment, and he was telling me that a lot of younger dentists who are looking for work, they don't want to put all the eggs in one basket. They're not looking for full-time with one practice. They're looking at full-time but spread over 2 or 3 practices. And one of the reasons behind that is, and I'm sure this happens in every other industry, I only know dental, but this has happened for a long, long time anyway, that when you apply for a job and you're going through all the interview process, it happens on both sides. You both talk each other up, yourselves up, But what you end up with is can sometimes look quite different. And so we know that resumes, I think the current percentage is 75% of a resume is false. Again, I don't know if that's just dental or all the way around, but as employers, we know when we're looking at resumes that is just the slimmest knowledge of this human being you're going to end up knowing about. You're going to know them much more after an actual conversation with them, and you're going to know a hell of a lot more once working with them for 3 months. And the person on the resume looks different from the person that's presenting to you after a 3-month period. You think that's quite a big gap in between the two. But what dentists and practitioners, but also dental assistants and receptionists have found too, is that the practice themselves will talk themselves up. Oh, we're like a family here and we do everything beautifully. And, what if I ever had to take time off because my child was sick? Oh, that's all fine. No problems at all. And all the things. But then when they start working at this practice, they look around and they think this is not what you guys spoke about at all. So I think there is natural distrust in the relationship. And I think that is a shame, because ideally, whenever you're a business owner, ideally you are recognizing the impact of the team, that we can't do it without the team. And if we created a wonderful environment for that team, then we end up being the beneficiaries as well as our patients as well. And so it makes common sense to be very upfront and transparent about the type of offering that you're making out there, and to be able to always be on that constant and never-ending improvement journey when it comes to that. Always asking your team members, how could we do things better here to get better performance from you, more happiness from you, etc. And so that's one of the things that I think has been in place for a period of time. But that's right, with all the corporate ownership and things like that, there are additional opportunities now for new grads to go into practices and possibly be better supported. I've come across a number of practices that offer proper mentorship programs, but then on the other end of the scale, they are told you have to build your own books up here and we'll give you 2 new patients a month and you're going to have to do it off that, and they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs most of the time. So it's so much the experience that new grads are going to have really does come back down to, I feel like, their effective communication skills. Like, understand the kind of questions to ask, look for evidence of what the practice is claiming. If the practice claims we get 80 new patients a month, and say, well, can I see a report that proves that? Can I have a look at your appointment book so I can see how heavily you're booked? And it really does come, it's a dual responsibility role. So as an employer, we're the ones that go through the pains of a bad employee. And so we do our due diligence to be able to make sure that we are minimising that risk, but I think it has to happen on the other side as well. So one of my pieces of advice for new grads is, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, but talk to a lot of people, a lot of experienced people, all these dentists that seem to be too old that you're talking about. Talk to all of them and say, what environment do I want to work in? Because I haven't worked in them yet. I don't know what those environments are. And then just seek out those practices. And you're better off delaying employment by a few months and getting a great opportunity, rather than burning through a couple of practices with bad experiences and becoming tainted.
Yeah, it's difficult for dentists graduating because they've got a piece of paper that really is go and find somebody who can continue educating you what the university has failed to educate you. But for dental practice owners, to me, it seems really weird that they have to say, well, now it's my duty to educate someone, when really my job is to feed my family first. And I went down the path of employing a new graduate for a period of time, and Julie, I worked out the time that I spent mentoring. If I'd have just treated patients during that time, I would have made more money for my practice. My hourly rate was less mentoring her than she was bringing into the practice. It was very, very painful, and I thought that I can't do that. In fact, I remember one of my dentist friends. Her mother was a dentist, and her mother colloquially called the graduates who went to work at Westmead Hospital as doing year 6 dentistry. because they were getting more of an education than they were in terms of learning how to function as dentists. They were continuing the education in the hospital environment. It's a tough decision to choose to be a mentor, because owning a practice is hard enough. Doing the dentistry to keep people employed is hard enough, to provide for the practice, and then to educate someone who can up and leave and become your competitor.
Yeah, and this is one of the challenges, isn't it? I remember years ago reading a report about the different generations, and people of my father's generation, they generally had one career and a couple of jobs. And then you go to my generation, and we usually had one career and 5 jobs. And future generations coming through, or younger ones, not future anymore, younger generations coming through, they'll have 5 different careers. And so all of a sudden we are, we older people like us are looking at the opportunities of that, of bringing practitioners and all team members into the practice. And we've got this presumption, and fingers crossed, if everything goes well, this person will be with me for 10 years. And we're disappointed and disheartened when they're gone after a couple, but maybe it's just the nature of that particular generation. And so that's difficult, because we feel like we can never just relax back and just operate the dentistry. We have to always be hiring, always be adjusting that environment, always being making sure that we're on, we're becoming a bit of an employer of choice, because it is an empty market. I remember interviewing Jill Ford from RMIT in Frankston, and I don't know if this was I can't remember if it was a Victoria-wide or Australia-wide figure, but during COVID, we lost 33% of our auxiliary team base. And of course, that's never been replaced. And so not only are we always hiring, but are we always training as well? Are we always going to have to be relying on trainees coming through, which have their own benefits and drawbacks? Every situation has the benefit and the drawback. This is, Charles, my magnificent husband. And as he says, there are equal number of benefit and drawback to everything. One of the examples that he uses is he asks mothers, is having children a benefit? Are there benefits? Oh, absolutely. It's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Are there drawbacks? Absolutely. Because they're such a pain in my ass. And so you'll find that with everything. And it's just which list, the benefit or the drawback list, whichever one you focus on is going to be your experience of life. And I think there are opportunities and benefits to getting trainees, to getting new grads, to all the things, and we just need to really drag out as much opportunity out of that benefit as possible.
The trouble is, Julie, that dentistry is primarily a small business, and so it falls into that small business category. But the category of small business is bigger than the category of big business in terms of what it does for the economy. It guides the economy. But one of the things that came into my head while you were talking about training is that big business companies, and I know this, Officeworks, 10-week onboarding process, and it's just a filter. They're not everybody who goes through that program gets a job, but what they're doing is they're putting enough people through that program that it matches up, that the good ones that they get out of that is the same as the number of people who are moving on from a job in Officeworks. So they're continually recruiting for that replacement mode, and it's the same, I guess, in big retail, department stores, big chains. They just continually educate. But the interesting thing, and a friend of mine went through the Officeworks, this is how I know, 10-week program. It was 7 weeks before she got to go and work in a store. So 7 weeks before she was face-to-face with a customer. So what did she learn in that first 7 weeks? It was basically HR and complaints management and complaint allowances as well, what's right, what's wrong in the workplace. But in the end, I thought, she's not dealing with life or death situations in the mouth. She's selling pens, and yet it's 7 weeks before you actually get to deal with a customer. So maybe dentistry needs to be like that. Well, you and I both know that in dentistry, you used to work in a dental office? There's the phone. Off you go to work. Not even train those, this is how we answer it here. This is what we say here. Some of the things that we hear, because Jane listens to phone calls, it's some of it's people who come with experience, and all of a sudden they become the dentist, or they become, we get an orthodontic practice or a children's dental practice. And so the receptionist answers the phone and says, I'm new. I'd like to make an appointment for my children. And they say, oh, you probably want them to come during school holidays. They didn't ask for that. Why are you offering that? You've got a vacancy tomorrow and you're giving them an appointment down the track.
We're going to fill a book in 2 months' time, not today.
It's just defaulting to that. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of dental practices, they do hire with good intent to train up. But once that person is kind of managing the task kind of okay, it goes back to Groundhog Day, normal operation, and you forget that this person still needs to be nurtured and grown and developed and all the things. And I think that nowadays with, we've got at Dental Business Master, we've got our online courses. Online courses are so straightforward. I mean, it's difficult to get high level of engagement. Hopefully, if someone is being onboarded, hopefully they're quite engaged with wanting to learn all the things so they can implement themselves into the practice as easily, quickly as possible and gain great success. And so I think because of the fact these online courses are so, once you know how to put them together, it's really quite straightforward. And every dental practice could have an onboarding series of 10 videos that go through not just the basics of how to use that particular software that you've got, but also customer service, and also what happens if a team member's upset with you. Professionalism. This is one that I'm working on at the moment because people are saying there's just not that level of professionalism with younger generations coming through that's matching the people who are actually employing them. And what one person sees as professional, the other person's like, no, that's just controlling me too much. And so I think having that kind of introduction, usually when we are hiring somebody, there's always going to be a couple of weeks there that before they start because they have to give notice somewhere else or whatever the thing is. It might be a good opportunity for practices to actually start putting together a few of these videos together and offering an online course. And so when that new team member is coming on board, they've got a hell of a lot more information and increasing their chances of performing better, quicker, and both sides are getting that kind of level of success.
Yeah, it is important that new employees do have access to these perennial training, that they can watch. And this is how we do things here. Just watch this. But the accountability is the important thing. In fact, I went to my dentist earlier this month and he wasn't there, but I saw the hygienist as I normally do, and I was checked out by the dental assistant, and she gave me my appointment for 6 months' time, and she said, I will give you a call a few days before, and if you need to change it, you can change it.
Did she not know who you were?
I said, this is what you should have said. And that appointment is now confirmed, and we look forward to seeing you on that day. Yeah, but some people want to change. I said,
it's not about that. And this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, providing the context behind that kind of management, it's not about making sure that we're giving the patient every option to change if they want. The object is to make sure that they stick in the appointment book for good. And so, yeah, different kind of conversation, different why.
Yeah. Michael Bublé sells his tickets months in advance, but he doesn't ring you 2 days before and say, are you still coming? Do you want to change? Qantas don't do it when you've got a flight booked. But in dentistry, you can reserve a seat at a certain time and then you have a carte blanche to not turn up because somebody said you can change it a day before.
And I tell you what, during COVID, especially for women, during COVID, those hairdressing appointment times were so sought after once those hairdressers became opened again. Being down here in Victoria, we were closed down for 500 years, you see. So we're all all our beauty regime was out the window. And I remember thinking at the time, once I got that appointment time secured, I'm like, nothing on earth would make me change this appointment time. So how can we replicate that in the dental world? How do we? And I think this is one of those areas where if there are dental practice owners out there and they are very involved in the clinical, which is what they should be, and they see some of their systems kind of falling down, contacting yourself, contacting Jane, contacting consultants to be able to assist with these sort of things, it helps them do everything much more effectively. And you can learn all these things yourself, but you might be 80 by the time you get to all the lessons. So why don't we bring that time down and learn about it now and start having our businesses benefit from it? Because I think that sense of scarcity over every appointment time really does help patients value that appointment time more. So I can't move that one because I'm waiting another 3 months before I can get in again.
I think one of the things, Julie, becoming a coach has actually given me an even better insight into running a practice than actually being a practice owner, is that when a problem arises or a problem gets brought to me by a practice, it's a matter of looking at what were the processes that led to this disaster and going back in time and saying, well, the problem actually started here and we can't reprimand here because what that means is that the person who acted here actually didn't have the training and you didn't have the processes in place to prevent that from happening. And it actually happened because the doctor was running late, which is another process. And what causes the doctor to run late? Well, the doctor always runs late. So all of a sudden, blaming the person who had to make an excuse, there's no processes for making that. And this is a constant revelation in practice is, all right, let's just unpack this problem and see where it actually is. It's that video of the guy with the bucket trying to put the water over the fence and the water's coming through under the fence. He just keeps doing this, whereas he needs to go upstream and find out where the water's coming from, shut it off, and then no need for the bucket. So
there's a great Japanese process. It was developed in a kind of a production line of Japanese industry somewhere, but it's the asking why 5 times. Why did it happen? And why did that happen? And why did that happen? And why did that happen? But it is that reverse engineering to get to the original point of where the problems may be starting.
One of the problems, and you've touched on this in some of the answers, is that at the moment in dentistry, as it is in a lot of other industries, there is a shortage of manpower still in terms of being able to hire people to fill jobs. So we've got a problem of trying to overwork the team members that we have, or sending customers away because we don't have the ability. And that happened during COVID with restaurants. I know some restaurants just couldn't open because they didn't have staff on standby when they had to reopen. But in dentistry, multitasking, I think we mentioned this before we started recording, about if a staff member has to do dental assisting and reception and steri, it's kind of like they need roller skates, knee pads, the whole works, because they just have to be in too many places at once. And so the thing that usually goes by the wayside is that the phone goes to a voicemail, and the dentist thinks, oh, that's all right, they'll leave a message. No, they don't. And even if they leave a message, they've hung up and they've just rung the next dentist. And so that there's a sale, a customer gone. And they don't realise that for an extra $20 an hour, every time the phone rings and it doesn't get answered, that could be an extra $1,000 an hour, $2,000 an hour worth of dental treatment, big case, just an ortho case, just an Invisalign case, just a veneer case, they don't understand the logistics of having.
You've got to tap into the financial cost of not being staffed effectively. I've absolutely come across these sort of situations of, we haven't been able to put that additional clinician on because we haven't got a nurse. I'm like, what are you talking about? Put the damn clinician on, find a nurse. Don't have a lack of staff being the reason why you can't be as productive as you need to be or want to be. With hiring team members too, I mean, that reception front desk person is just so crucially important. I'd rather somebody there who's 60 years old and has a magnificent character and wonderful communication skills and
me, a 60-year-old,
and knows nothing about dental. Don't think you're saving your or making the correct business decision by putting somebody who's 18 on the front desk who knows a little bit about dental because they're cheaper. It's one of the worst decisions that you can possibly make. And you recognize what a bad decision that is if you are ever to experience the other end of the extreme and you have this most delightful person conducting these telephone conversations. They delight all the patients. They're thinking as they're going as well. So they understand how to resolve complaints. They understand how to get patients to go into that appointment slot rather than that appointment slot. And they're thinking as they're going, as opposed to someone that is just, ticking off, these are the 10 tasks I need to do today. I'm going to answer the phones, take the payments, etc. And I'll tick them off. And once I've ticked them off, my job is done and I'm perfect. That there is a level of impact and contribution that health practitioner team members get to make. With Charles and his work, for example, he is Australasia's passion provocateur. He does amazing work helping people to identify what they're passionate about, so they're leaping out of bed every morning doing and having the impact that they want. My experience was different. I wasn't passionate about dental. I love dental. I wasn't passionate about dental. I was passionate about skipping school when I first entered into the dental industry. But what I absolutely found, and this is part of the work that we're really trying to focus on over the coming years with dental team members, is that when you increase the level of energy and enthusiasm behind your interactions with patients and each other as team members, the increased amount of impact and contribution that you're having, you will become passionate about what you do. You won't be passionate about dental, but you'll be passionate about the impact that you can have and the difference that you're making to people. And I think when we do start to create a working environment that we are recruiting, not just to get anybody in, because one of the other common problems is that we just need a warm body in that seat. And we know they're a square peg, and we know that we've got a round hole, but I don't care. They may not fit, but this is what we're going to do. Instead, you are recruiting people who become excited about the thought of working for you because they want to have that kind of contribution in their life. They want to be able to be passionate about their work. They don't want to be apathetic about how they earn money. They want to make a difference. They want to work to a purpose. And the issue that we have when we are just hiring for a warm body is we're not getting somebody who's the right fit. And the people who we already trained up, they've been working there for a number of years and they're happy and they're good performers. When the square peg comes along, all the other round pegs are like, oh, we're doing her work for her all the time. She's the one turning up late all the time. She's the one that's dragging things down. And the square peg will hang around forever and your good round pegs will be jumping ship because they don't want to work in that environment. They want to work in an environment where everyone's really respectful of each other, helps each other and supports each other through the day, and they can rely on each other that the patients are going to be managed to a standard that makes them feel proud about working there.
Yeah, it's really important that we, as owners, are mindful that when somebody isn't a fit, that hanging on to them, hoping that they're going to change, or hanging on because they know how to do a certain process and nobody else in the practice does, and so they have a hold over the owner, that actually brings the level of happiness in the business down. And always in the back of my mind is that scene at the end of Working Girl where Sigourney Weaver is shown the door and everybody claps as she leaves because she was the boss and she was just wrong fit. And so it's about having the right fit, and that's really, really important. But there's an issue though, as an employer and an interviewer in terms of HR, sometimes looking for the right fit can be tiresome, and the team sees all these people coming in, but why isn't the owner hiring one of them? Because we need somebody, we need a body to do the job. Can't anybody just do that job? Sometimes they even get frustrated with the level of work and whether the owner has this perfectionist mindset of trying to find the ideal person. But it's not hard to find the right person. It's just how their brain is, because you can train anybody who's nice to do dentistry, but it's hard to train everybody who knows dentistry to be nice with customers as well. That's a difficult thing that customer service mindset is something that is acquired through time, as you mentioned. An older employee who's done customer service, if they've worked in other industries, they can bring that to dentistry and easily learn. Jane was a classic example. Never scrubbed an instrument, never held a suction in her life. Didn't even know what a crown prep involved until she actually had one done. Yet she could help patients to get that dentistry at the front desk and make dentistry a pleasure to visit because of the experience they had out the front overrode any negative thoughts that they had of what was going to go on at the back.
That's it. And when you look at the competitive nature, I don't like saying competitiveness with dentists. So, back in the day when I was first working in dental surgeries, they were colleagues rather than competitors. So let's use the word competitive for the sake of what I'm about to say. There's a client that I've been working with, looked at and did a competition analysis. Who's around you? What are they doing? And there were quite a number of practices in this area, in this particular area. All of them had Invisalign. All of them did bleaching. All of them did implants. All of them opened on Saturdays. All of them opened in the evening. All of them, or I should say half of them were preferred provider. The points of difference are reducing. They all had CEREC machines. And so I feel like get rid of all that. Don't worry about any of that. Because as you were talking about before about the margins, patients aren't aware of where the benefit lies for them in certain areas of that. With opening hours, sure, you need to be able to be available to your patients when they need to see you. But I think the point of difference that truly works across the board for patients, for team members, for owners, for the viability, the growth of the business is customer service. You make sure you provide a 10% increased level of customer service at your practice as opposed to anybody else in the area, and then sing and dance about that in your social media posts, on your website. This is what it means to be a patient here. It is so obvious that you're going to be treated better here than anywhere else. We have more fun with you, more respect, more caring, all the things. Because that will make sure your existing clients, even though they might go, I need to go over there for Invisalign, or I need to go over there for a cheaper price, they'll go over, but they'll see the difference. I feel better coming here, so I'm going to keep returning here. But when we are talking about long-term viability, success of a practice, we're really talking about get as many perpetual patients as possible. Those patients that come every 6 months, they only ever come to you. They take your treatment advice. They honor their appointment times. They stick to them. They've got such a strong relationship with you. They don't want to cancel. They don't want to let you down. And perpetual patients will make your practice hugely successful. But if you don't have them yet, they're perpetual, but they're perpetual somewhere else at the moment. And so how do you message? How do you, first of all, increase the standard of customer service that your team delivers? And then how do you message that so effectively that all of these other perpetual patients at other practices are learning about it, are finding out about you? And it is when we are encouraging our team members and we're putting them through effective team training to be able to deliver that higher end customer service. Doesn't has to cost a lot of money, just enough money to train people, that they start increasing the level of job satisfaction that they're experiencing. And so your team members remain loyal as well, because here I get to make a difference. There I'm sucking spit. Here I'm making a difference.
Yeah, you find that when a practice does have great customer service and really good patients, like you said, they have less complaints, less things go wrong. And if there is a complaint, the patient, or if there is an error, the patient is willing to have it rectified. They understand that mistakes can happen, and they're really nice about it. So having that service recovery process is really, really important. But team members need to understand that when we start cutting corners in terms of number of staff multitasking, missing out on getting phone calls, missing out on passing messages, that's another thing that in my practice, if you took a message, it was your job to make sure that that message was followed through. It's not just your job to give it to somebody else and then not my problem anymore. You've got to make sure, if you gave it to the dentist, did you follow through with that, David? Make sure that you get back to the person who gave you the message, the customer, and say, I'm just letting you know that I've given that message to David and he'll get back to you tomorrow, or he'll get back to you by the end of the week. And just keeping people in the loop and not just treating them, we all fear when we ring a big business that we get put on hold, and then when we get transferred, we've got to tell the next person exactly what we told the first person, and then we get transferred again, and then we get transferred again, and it drives us nuts. In dentistry, we've got that opportunity of running a small business, and because it is such a personal experience. The location of your customer is basically inside their personal space and inside your personal space. We've got to make it something that makes that not a problem for them. That they welcome the relationship, and it's a trust relationship. The other thing is, in dentistry, you can't watch what's going on. Even as a dentist, I've got no idea what's going on. All I can see is a light. I've got no idea as a patient what instrument's going in my mouth.
That's it. Trust is an enormous part of it, that's for sure. And I had a recent experience of going to, someone had given me a voucher for a massage. And I don't tend to go for a lot of massages or anything like that. And then I had a wry neck one morning. I'm like, oh, I've got that massage voucher. I'm going to go along and see them. And I wrote a blog about it. So if you want the whole story, read the blog of a few weeks ago. But it was just a wonderful experience, because it was a terrible experience. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to see how, when just little things go wrong, when I rang up, the phone call wasn't smooth, and then this happened, and then I turned up and that happened. And it was a stacking of negatives. And you start off with a professional level of trust. I trust this person hasn't been hauled off by the cops or deregistered, so I trust that they've got enough nous to be able to at least give me a massage. But then these little negatives that were stacking up, and the trust was being eroded away, and it culminated in me being in the massage room, thankfully still fully clothed, going, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm not doing it anymore. It was politely left. But we have the opportunity to flip that as well. And we have patients coming into us, and they are kind of forced into that basic level of trust. But then we add reasons why they've made the right decision. Positive, 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 positive. And it really does help build that trust, because you're right. A patient that trusts you is tolerant of little things that go wrong, because life happens. Someone that doesn't have trust in you, this is another reason why I need to be hitting the bricks and getting out of here. One of the things I wanted to quickly mention, just to round up what we was talking about before, was when, yes, the pool of people available to us to hire is small. I would always prefer to have temps fill in positions until I found a good hire.
Oh, for sure.
I would. And the other thing is, and this has been since COVID, the number of auxiliary team members that have spoken to me about they're having to now jump out and answer the phones and jump into stereo and do this and do that. And they've got that, multitasking thing happening where they never used to before, always working with one team player down, so everyone's doing more all the time. That is such an erosion of faith in the leadership. I really want dental practice owners to truly understand that. While they're still there tolerating it, the practice owners can be given a false sense of security that everything's going to be okay, even though it's not ideal. But it's not. These people aren't sharing the daily grind disadvantage they're going through, that's making it harder and harder for them to get out of bed every morning to come on into the practice. And so that's one of the things I did want to kind of mention, that because we do need bodies to hold the suction, to answer the phone, etc. So definitely go down the path of tapping into all of the many resources that are available now to get temp staff until you can actually find a good hire.
Yeah, and that used to be the way that we used to work at my practice. Even when we were down, reception staff, our dental assistants knew the processes of what needed to be done at reception. They weren't migrated to reception, never to return to dental assisting. In fact, it was a better way if we wanted a good receptionist, we hired specifically for reception, so we didn't just migrate people in and hope for the best. But there was always, you had to have a really good relationship with your temp supplier as well, that they would send good people to you, and they would, and that the people who went to you would also go back to the temp agent and say, loved working at that practice. They were really good, ran to time, did good dentistry. Everybody enjoyed working there. And so being, that's your practice's window to the rest of the dental world, because that agency could end up placing a temp in your practice. Julie, I wanted to talk briefly, probably, about the impact that you're seeing of AI in dentistry. Two ways that I'm seeing it is the the ability of dental radiographs now being diagnosed with AI, which takes the 50 shades of grey out of diagnosing, and you can tell the patient, see that colour, that's decay, as opposed to see that bit of white. It really clears up that two dentists looking at an X-ray and one seeing decay, one not, and the patient also respects the fact that it's computer-generated diagnosis. That's one. But the second thing, which I don't think is being taken up in dentistry as quickly as it should be, is digital recordings of conversations going straight into notes now. We all laughed at the original digital recording of Dragon when it first came out and how wrong everything was. But now they're really good. And I know when I went to a neurosurgeon about my a pinched disc in my back, he just put down he said, I'm just going to record this for my notes, and bang, there it was, and then that just gets passed straight. So all that time dentists spend typing notes and trying to remember what they said can now just be uploaded straight away. Are you seeing that in your customers, or is there a lag in that being taken up?
There's definitely a lag in it, but those that are taking it up are talking to me about the hours of time they're saving every month by getting, and it is more accurate as well. Certainly, there's a lot of practices that have their dental assistant doing the notes for them on their behalf, and then they're doing the check at the end of it as well. So now that dental assistant's time is more freed up to either do the stereo from the last patient or comfort the patient and be a better support in the surgery as well. The note-taking side of it, for me, is just a no-brainer. Just start doing it. Get over the learning hurdle. It's not that dramatic. Get into it. I had one dentist say, but I can't rely on the fact that they're all going to be exact. I'm like, no, you check it yourself at the end. You don't just go, that's it. That's the AI note. I'm just have to have faith in that. Make sure you do check it at the end. But the notes are better. They're more consistent. They're legible. Everyone can understand them, and it gives you back hours every month. And so you'll be able to use those hours doing more treatment or more further learning or more relaxation time. Going to the football. I know that you love going to the football. So be able to get far better balance and be less rushed. And sometimes that's the reason why dentists are running late as well. They don't account for the time they have to take to write the notes up as well. So whatever we can do to be as on time as possible for patients is a positive. With the AI in terms of their radiographs, I think that's fantastic. We were talking earlier about new grad dentists, and what better way to make sure there is a consistent finding on patients when you've actually got that AI voice in there as well. And it is seeing is believing. The minute intraoral cameras were being used to show patients cracked margins and leaky margins and cracked fillings, etc., it convinces the patient this is something that I need to do something about. And this is the same with the AI radiographs. That you don't have to trust me. You don't have to take my word for it. It's right here. And quite often you have patients looking at these and going, now what's that? And now what's that? And so they're the ones prompting the dentist to say, well, that is another area that we need to look into. And yes, that is another area that we need to look into. I was attending a webinar over the weekend conducted by Sue Ruslan and Tom Larkin and Jason Payne, just with regard to the Larkin protocol, and that they use a microscope to look at the microbiome of the oral cavity. And Dr. Larkin said that I have never seen patients engaged in their treatment like they are after they see these little videos of all these little spirochetes or whatever you call them running around in their mouth. And the adoption of treatment plans is extraordinary. And so even though yes, patients trust us. And we've all had that experience where for me as a dental assistant working with dentists that had been practicing for decades, seeing the same patients for decades, the trust is so established that all the dentist has to say is, it's time to crown this tooth. Okay. And the patient just books straight in. Yes, that is glorious, but it's not available to everybody. Normally that's earned over a long period of time. And so until you get to that stage, it's wonderful to have that aid where patients can look at it and see for themselves, yes, this needs to be done.
Yeah, I think dentistry's headed towards a whole new era of certainty that, it's every dentist's fear and that's why they underdiagnose, underpresent, underdo, is that they'll be rejected for saying you need 12 fillings, and the patient goes, I need to think about it. They go somewhere else, and the next dentist says, they tell that next dentist, I just went to a bloke, he said 12 fillings. Oh, well, I've had a look, you only need 8. Oh,
Surprise,
guess
surprise.
what
It's
happens
only
next
8
time?
now.
Before next time, yeah.
I'll mention the other ones next time they come in.
I'll
Yes.
just pick the 8 worst ones, yeah. So I think John Wilkinson on the ADA and the dental board said to me, he said, you could get 100 dentists do a molar endo, and didn't matter who they were, specialists, general dentists, 90 of them would be fine, 10 of them would not be fine, and if you looked at them radiographically, they all looked like they were fine.
Amazing.
So
yeah.
it's just the feeling that the patient has, and so that's the grey area being taken out of it now by this AI tool for reading radiographs, and I think it's just going to be a no-brainer now for keeping patients. Well, here's the evidence. It's not what I say anymore. I remember you said you're talking about your massage experience, and I remember going to an orthopedic surgeon about my knees, and I had one visit with him. He said, "Oh, we'll operate on your right knee," and then I went back 2 weeks later, and he says, "Oh no, we're going to operate on your left knee. Your right knee's okay." And I'm going, didn't operate on either of them. Didn't end up there. So yeah, there's a little bit of confusion. Anyway. Julie, great talking with you. We've gone a little over time. That's okay, because it's always a pleasure getting your insight as to what's happening in dentistry. How can any of our viewers get in touch with you if they'd like to get in touch with you?
The best way is just to go straight to the website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. It's got all of our contact details, all the ways that we can help dental practices become more successful and dental team members be more successful. So it's the best place to go.
Easy. All right. Julie Parker, thank you very much for being a guest today on the Ultimate Dental Podcast. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Absolute pleasure to catch up with you as well, Dave, and all the very best to your glorious wife who had a birthday recently. I hope she had a good time.
Oh, of course she did. It wasn't a birthday. It's a birth month. We're still in it, Julie.
Fantastic. Well, love to Jane, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak. Any chance I get to speak with you is fantastic, but also to the audience as well.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for being part of our dental community and joining us each week on this incredible journey. If you found value in today's episode and you don't want to miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights and actionable strategies, here's how you can stay connected with us. Firstly, hit that subscribe button. Whether you're listening on your favourite podcast platform or watching on our website, subscribing ensures you'll never miss an episode. Secondly, share the love. If you know a fellow dentist or colleague who could benefit from the wisdom and knowledge that we share here, please share our podcast with them. Also, please share the podcast on your socials by simply clicking on the social icons wherever you view or listen to this podcast. Together, we can all do our bit to elevate the dental profession. And finally, stay engaged with us. We love hearing from you. Your questions, comments, and feedback fuel our mission to provide the best content for your professional growth, your personal growth, and for your practice growth. Remember, your journey to creating a dental practice and a business life that you love is our mission, and we're excited to be your trusted guide along the way. Thank you for being a part of the Ultimate Dental Podcast. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and keep on tuning in to the Ultimate Dental Podcast.